storygoers, and welcome back to yet another episode of Tales from the Cartridge, the video game storytelling podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Eric Penrod.
And I am your other co-host, Ryan Bauer.
Ryan, we went on a fantastic excursion this morning.
We did, yeah.
With our partners. It was great. We went geocaching, which
We did.
I've never done really before. I've only heard about it, so it was great. I got to write my name on a piece of paper to show that I had geocached.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can use that word as a verb, but I'm going for it.
You're doing it. You're making it happen.
I did. And now I just want to geocache everything. And we had very lengthy conversations about all the things that we'd like to do. Or I guess I want to do, but I'll probably drag everybody else with me in my attempt to geocache. So, but besides that, how are you? And what have you been playing?
I'm doing pretty good. It was a really wonderful walk this morning and got to hang out a little bit, so that was wonderful. As far as what I've been playing, a little bit of Satisfactory. I've still been building Satisfactory. I've tore down, rebuilt, I think, 3 factories because I'll get something in and then I won't like it and tear it all down and build it again. And it's one of those games where there's no downside to breaking something. You get all the materials back. So that's really cool. So I'm able to kind of redesign all over and over again, which is really fun. Still a ton of Stardew and then a little bit of Outriders, which when we have time, it's been tough to wrangle 3 folks to all play at the same time, so when we can, it's been really fun. But yeah, I think that's about it. But how are you, and what have you been playing?
I'm good. Like you said, we had a great walk this morning. I kind of feel like it rejuvenated me after a long week, which I kind of needed that, so it was really nice. And then I got falafel after. It was kind of a spur of the moment thing. We decided to go get falafel. So now I'm very full and I'm like kind of like tired, but in a good way. It's like, I can like nap anytime I want, and I had that control over myself. I don't know where I'm going with that. Anyway, what I've been playing. So I've still been playing Skyward Sword, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. I'm trying to get the Master Sword Trials done with, but it's super duper hard, and I keep dying because of stupid ways that are typically my fault, but I blame the game. So it's all the game's fault, not my fault. I'm too good. But that's good. I bought Pokemon Snap, the new Pokemon Snap, with my partner last night. Yeah, and it's great. It's great. A little too long in the beginning. A lot of dialogue, kind of cringy Pokemon characters talking to you, and I don't really care. And we just kind of just like pressing A very fast, and then once you get in the game though, and you're snapping pictures, it's a lot of fun. It is so much fun. It makes you feel like you're playing the N64 version again, but just have you ever had like that moment in your mind where you think of like an N64 game or just a game back in the 90s, and in your mind it looks so beautiful and so like just vibrant and crisp and like just so great, and then you see that game again in actuality in the real world, and you think, whoa, that's not what that game looked like to me at all. Yeah, it's like it's interesting. So like the new Pokemon Snap, it just looks like how I always thought Pokemon Snap looked like to me when I was younger. So it's been a lot of fun though. I highly recommend it. If you like Pokemon and you like Pokemon Snap on the N64, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. They make it so that way not every single run is the same in a sense. As you grow, the courses kind of change themselves, and so you get to keep an eye out on all those different changes, which is cool. And you have little challenges you can do to kind of earn more points, which is really cool. It keeps you involved. So I'm excited to play that tonight again, drinking some ciders probably, which is great. I'm sure so the new professor is Professor Mirror, and he just looks like a dweeb to me. I don't know. He looks like he's a dude that's like my age telling me what I should do. But I'm sure he wouldn't want me to drink and take pictures, but I'm just going to anyway, so.
It's not like you have to drive that little car, right? It drives itself.
No, it does for you. Yeah. I'm just crashing into Pokemon. Accidents galore. It's awful. So hopefully, storygoers, you enjoyed our latest episode of Bastion. We were really proud of that one. That turned out really good. Yeah. My throat hurt a little bit, but I was really happy with it. I was worth it. You know what I mean? It wasn't any regret with that. It was great. It turned out fantastic. Ryan did a great job with that script. So it was very, very good. And we hope that you're doing well. Everyone's healthy. As always, you can send us your thoughts, feelings, and or perspectives to talesfromthecartridge@gmail.com. All of the E's are 3s. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram. DM us and let us know, or comment on our stuff, and let us know what you think of the games that we have covered or will be covering, and we will share your perspectives on the show. And if you do, we will happily send you a Tales from the Cartridge sticker. For those of us that live in the same state of Maine that we live in, we might be geocaching some stickers, because that was a popular idea this morning when we were talking about it. So if you're a geocacher and you like the podcast, then man, we are something right up your alley, hopefully one day when I'm not busy, to geocache. So, but yeah, without further ado, though, for today's episode, Ryan came up with this fantastic idea.
You had the idea of the idea of the episode, and I just kind of tweaked it a bit.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's true. So really, it's both our credit. I'm gonna give you more credit, because you did a lot of the work here, which is it looks awesome. But Ryan, do you want to share what our episode is today?
Yeah, so we've made, I think, 24 episodes of game stories over the past almost year now. We're coming up on the year now. So we thought it might be fun to talk about our favorite episodes that we've made so far. And I was thinking that it might make it even more interesting if we kind of put it into a bracket format where we put all of the episodes we've done and we get to kind of have a discussion about which we think is our favorite episode that we've made for a whole bunch of reasons. I seeded it based on downloads by who's had the most downloads. So certainly our older episodes in some cases are higher seed because they've gotten more downloads, but we still get the freedom to decide what those are. But I thought that was a fun way to have the viewers also have an impact on what we decide, because the episode listened to the most is higher seeded. Yes. And then we get to kind of go through and have a discussion to decide which of these episodes we're most proud of, had the most fun making, had the most impact on us as an individual, we were thinking about it long afterwards, or was the most unique or different or something fun and exciting to see it. But we made a bracket with all the episodes. So we're going to go through today and give ourselves a time limit of 5 minutes for each round to keep things moving and hopefully stop us from rambling. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, and then by the end we'll have the game that we've enjoyed, the episode that we're most proud of or most enjoyed or had the most impact or most unique of the 2021 year. And then maybe next year we'll do this again and we'll have 23 more episodes to talk about. Yeah. And we'll go from there. So that'll be really fun. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. Eric had the idea of our favorite episode, and I thought it might be fun to add a bracket. So that's where we are.
It's a true Tales in the Cartridge Battle Royale. Only one will survive, the rest get deleted.
Yeah, exactly. We're destroying everyone that doesn't.
You'll delete them, you'll never hear from them again. Yeah. You had your chance. Sorry. You'll just hear how good these episodes were. All of our episodes are, and for the record, all of our episodes are absolutely fantastic. You should listen to every single one, really. Right. There's no one that is truly better than another. But there is one that probably is better than the rest. Yeah.
And then at the end of this, like you said, we're going to delete, and there'll only be one episode in our feed, and that might be bad for us as a podcast, but we think we have to stick to our guts on that.
I hope someone believes this.
I know.
They're like, wow, this is serious.
That isn't true.
Like, wow, these guys are hardcore. All the hours we spent editing these episodes, just all the sound effects. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're limiting ourselves, like Ryan said, to 5 minutes because both he and I agree that we are both awful at making decisions. We are non-confrontational, happy people, and we just cannot make decisions, especially if it impacts the other person. At least if we feel like it, then we really cannot make a decision. We will happily give up our own choices for the other person, I think, which will make this hilarious.
Yeah, so you guys get to enjoy that, our nonsense. Yeah.
So please bear with us in our need to be kind to one another, but also trying to prove our point in some way, in the nicest, non-confrontational way. So, but yeah, 5 minutes, and we have our bracket all set, thanks to Ryan. It's fantastic. So I guess, right, should we just jump into these brackets?
Let's dive in, yeah. So our first game is Soma versus Oddworld Abe Odyssey. Sorry, it's our first
5 minutes starts
5 minutes.
Now.
Okay, Eric, what are your thoughts on between these two? Both of these are very different episodes. Soma was during our Halloween one. It was, I think, our first spooky.
Was it?
Yeah, I think it started off because we did Soma, Outlast, Red Dead, and then I think we did Outlast 2, correct?
That's right.
So this is our first spooky episode, and then we have Oddworld Abe Odyssey, which we did for our friends, the First Encounter podcast, which I ended up also was really proud of that one as well. So both of these I think are great choices. What are your initial thoughts?
Oh, this is the worst one to start with, honestly, because I love both these episodes for very different reasons. Soma caught me off guard. I'd never really heard much about Soma, but that ending. So there might be a little bit of spoilers here, guys, so just bear with us. So if you haven't listened to these episodes, you're going to play these games you want to, please make sure you pause it or go ahead. 5 minutes, and you'll get to another bracket. But anyway, another seed. Anyway, Soma is it was a game that really left me thinking about it afterwards, to the point where I had to look it up on YouTube to see what how it actually ends, because in my mind it had some way. So it was such an impactful game. It really made me think about what it means to be human, which is such a deep conversation, and it was just so meaningful to me. And then we have Oddworld, which again, I don't think we were ever going to really plan on covering until our friends at Chris and Haney at First Counter Podcast asked us to cover an episode for them. And we did such a good job taking Oddworld and really making a fun script where, the narrator is working with the main character and telling the story. Well, they're not really working with each other. It's kind of against each other. So like, it was really fun. So both are great. I think my choice.
Okay.
Do you have your choice?
I think so. This is, again, really hard because Soma was a script I was really proud of, and it was like such an impactful game. And then Oddworld, again, caught me out of left field, but I think I have my choice. Do we want to do it on 3?
Let's do it on 3.
Okay, ready?
All right. 1, 2, 3. Soma.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Soma, yeah. Soma was just a game that really left a mark on me. It really left a mark on me. And I'm sad because Oddworld was such a good episode for us. It really was. Yeah. It really is a great episode. But it has to die. So
yeah, sorry.
Soma
deleted
so Soma moves forward.
Yeah, Soma moves forward. Yeah, and then we'll come back to the next round. So next game, again, these are some of our more recent episodes. This is another tough one. Ori and the Blind Forest versus Fury. Another tough matchup.
Man.
Yeah.
Another tough matchup. I don't... do you want to start with this? You want to start with this one, Ryan?
Yeah, I'll start with this one. So, Ori is a game that I just love that game so much. That story is probably one of my favorite that we've done. Just the emotional impact, the storytelling was just so good. And then you have Fury, which is a game I had no concept of, and the concept was so cool. I think the editing, the voice work in that one is probably our best. You did an incredible job editing the voices in that. I think that might be our best edited with Altering Our Voices episode that we have. So again, they're for 2 different reasons. Those are really great stories. I think Ori, the storytelling's great, the characters are great. Fury, same thing, but I think the editing on that episode made it just superb and one of our best to showcasing your editing ability, I think.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind. You're so kind. Yeah, I everything you just said is kind of is the same way I feel. I think Fury is such a unique story, and it was kind of hard to cover at times. You really had to put a lot of imagery into it to make it a story that was understandable in terms of like a storytelling perspective. Ori is a game I didn't have any background with, but ended up truly loving it because the whole point of this podcast is perspectives. And so we really got a sense of, I think it was her name, Kumo. Yeah. The bad guy's guy.
Yeah.
Really got a good understanding of Kumo's perspective and how relatable that perspective is, and just kind of how it was just so many character perspectives that really made me like driven to that story, and I really liked it. Whereas Fury is very mysterious. You don't really know what's going on. The characters are so unique and interesting. And I think you're right. The editing in that was really good. I really tried my best. Your first voice that was in the episode, the jailer voice, was awesome. It turned out so good. But I think I have an answer. I think I know.
Okay, you're feeling okay. All right, I think I am too. So what do we want to? So, and we also have to decide if we disagree here. We will just have to talk it out, and then in 5 minutes we'll do another countdown, and that'll be it. Okay. All right. I'm ready when you are. Do you want to do another countdown?
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Ori. Okay.
There we go. Yeah. There we are.
I mean, Fury is great. The voices are fun. It was a good story, but Ori was just so beautiful. It's such an impactful story. Again, like it's one that leaves its mark on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next one. The next one is Red Dead Undead Nightmare versus Ratchet and Clank.
What a fun matchup. That's so funny.
It's a fun one. Yeah.
Whoever thought Red Dead Undead Nightmare and Ratchet and Clank would ever be up in a competition with each other? That's so cool.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Do you want to go off and start off on this one?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to. Undead Nightmare was so much fun to record. That game, that's right. I had forgotten. I played that game forever ago, so I really didn't remember a whole lot. When we were doing that story, we were just laughing. We had to stop a couple of times. We were laughing so hard. Like, it was great. Yeah. It was so much fun. The characters are great. I remember we recorded late one night. It was dark in my den when I was recording it. I remember it was so much fun. I feel like we finished 7 o'clock at night. And I remember just feeling so pumped for that episode. I was so excited for it to come out. Ratchet and Clank, though, Ratchet and Clank was fantastic because I had no experience with Ratchet and Clank. You know, I always wanted to. I just felt like I was so behind. There was no way I was ever going to catch up and be able to play that series. I just felt like it was kind of just flew by me. But covering Ratchet and Clank has driven me to now have replayed the remake. I'm not replayed it. Having played the remake, the 2015 or 16 remake, and enjoying it. Not the best game, you know. It never was. I don't think it ever tried to be the best game.
Yeah.
And now, because of covering this game, I'm excited for Rift Apart. And watching that Sony State of Play the other day, where it showcased Rift Apart and how cool it looked. I don't think I'd be as excited for it if I didn't play the new one and we didn't cover Ratchet and Clank. So it has a lot of meaning there. But what do you think, Ren?
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. I think Red Dead was probably one of the most fun episodes we've ever made. Writing the script was so fun. And then recording was just a really great time. It was probably some of the most fun I've had doing the recording, just because of the lines and the things we were talking about. And it was just really wonderful. And I really loved how it turned out with the spookiness of it. It was like a good twist on that spooky. There was still some scariness there, but the scariness was cut by just how ridiculous that world is in it. And I loved it and missed it so much, and I really enjoyed it. Ratchet and Clank is a series that is near and dear to my heart, and it was really great to go back and look at those roots, and it really inspired me to then go and replay some of those old games and really love and get really excited for the new one that's coming out, and really just diving back into that world that, hey, maybe we'll chat about that soon. But dive back into that Ratchet and Clank world and get an idea and fall in love with those characters again. Those are really, really great. I think for me, there's a really clear and easy winner here. I don't know about you, but for me, there's a really clear winner.
I mean, I do, and I'm nervous that... I'm now nervous to not have the same answer. I'm curious.
Okay, we'll see. All right, ready?
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
3,
2, 1.
Red Dead. Yeah, Red Dead.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Just so much fun. Yeah, it was so good to record that. And just we had so much fun recording that and laughing. We could not stop ourselves.
Yeah,
it was so good.
The Seth lines, and it was just all wonderful.
Yeah.
I loved that recording. That was so fun.
I pushed myself so hard to do Seth. Like that was hard. It was it was good though. Just the lines. John Marston telling his wife or telling someone, either his wife or his son, not to eat each other or something like that was a line that really got to me. All the Seth stuff is so funny. Like it was just such a good line. It's like it's a good episode. Yeah, yeah.
All right, up next we have Outlast Whistleblower versus Shadow of the Colossus. What I really like about these matchups, these two that we've just done, is there's 2 of my scripts and then 2 of your scripts, which is really fun. Yeah. So these are both your scripts. So I'm interested to see what your thoughts are here.
Yeah. I think so. I'll start with Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus was such an undertaking, more so than I anticipated, because it was so hard to write a script. Again, almost like Fury, where it's just boss battles. Like there has to be so much imagery that's kind of shoved into that story to make it interesting, because it is an interesting story when you play it, but hearing it as a whole other beast, it's so hard. But I think there's a lot of reward in that, because I think allowed me, at least personally, writing a script to become better at writing scripts and adding imagery and really thinking through like what I'm writing. It kind of pushed me to be better, because I was afraid it was not going to be interesting, which I mean, I'm definitely biased. I think it did turn out good. I'd like to think so. So it was really cool. Whereas Outlast Whistleblower was a game that was so much fun, not only to write, but to record those lines was so good. And I wish I remembered his name, the bad guy in Whistleblower, the one that's always chasing the main character. He wants to like make the main character his bride. He's very, he's very sick. That was so much fun to do the voice of that character, because he says things I would never ever say in a million years, probably. Well, I wouldn't say that. You never know, but I would hope not. Things I would never say currently, ever. Which was almost like a fun way to kind of get outside your own personality. You know what I mean? Like it was just fun to be this crazy, like, sadistic, evil person. It was kind of scary. I have a lot of bias for these two. They're both great for different reasons. But Ryan, what did you think?
Yeah, I think in the same. They're both great for different reasons. I think Whistleblower was our last scary episode, and there was something really magical about. We had for the first time done this scary month, and that was the finisher, which was so good. And I know it was tough to decide on what that last episode was, but I think Whistleblower was the perfect choice, because it just rounded out that story in such a great way, and it was just like a really spooky script. And so that was really fun. Shadow of the Colossus is probably one of the hardest games we've had to write because it is so beloved and there's so much imagery involved in that story. The visuals really carry that story so much, but you did a really incredible job capturing that. And it was just really fun to record and really fun to relive that story and that experience. So this one is really tough for me. There's neither, at least for me, neither of them is kind of jumping out as a clear winner. I think you both love these for different reasons. So I don't know about this one. Do you have a clear one that is clear to you?
I love both of them, but there is one that sticks out for me.
Interesting. Interesting.
I love them both, but there's one that definitely sticks out.
Okay, let me see. All right. Okay, I think I can...
I won't be offended.
I just don't know. I think both of these for very different reasons. Outlast, we had that really great discussion about toxic masculinity, which I thought was really cool and really useful. And then Shadow of the Colossus again, it felt like a big milestone in our podcast where we had recorded a really well known game. I think did a really good job on it. Yeah, I don't know. This one's really tough for me.
These are both very significant stories for us in our journey in the Tales journey,
Man, okay, I can make a decision. I think I don't know if it's I'm not totally sold on it. So I think if we disagree, I'll give it to you here. But I think I can make a decision.
Okay, all right. We have 1 minute, so we can do this. Okay.
You ready?
You ready?
3, 2, 1. Shadow of the Colossus. Different. Okay, all right.
I think Outlast was just so fun. It was just such a good, great... like you said, for some reason, I was nervous of picking Outlast because it was, again, a sequel, or a DLC sequel to the original one, which we had just covered. I was afraid it was too soon, but how scary and creepy and, like, the singing I had to do for that, and just... it was just a perfect way to round it up for me. Shadow of the Colossus was great for me, but I just think Outlast had overall a better... cohesiveness to it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. The reason that I lean towards Shadow of the Colossus is just, I think, a story that I had a really big personal impact, and it was really good to tell that story. And it felt really meaningful for that reason. But if you feel strongly about Outlast, I don't feel super strong about this one, and I'm happy to cede this one, and I'll get you back later if we have another disagreement from there.
Okay, I can respect that. I'll remember that.
All right, perfect.
Perfect. Right. We had 5 seconds left to...
Okay, good. We found a decision. All right, Outlast moves on. Okay, this one is also very tough. Okay, we have Firewatch and Bastion. And these are two stories that I both really love for really different reasons. Firewatch, I think, is one of my favorite episodes we've done just because of the discussions. It didn't do incredible, but it is one of the... I mean, actually, it did pretty good. It did good, It's an episode that was so meaningful because of the discussions that we had. It feels like this episode, at least from my memory, is we had the most really in-depth discussion about what was going on. And the characters were so interesting and meaningful, and I just really loved this story, and it's a story I hadn't remembered all that well. To go back and dissect it was really great, it was a really great story to tell. The adding the sound effects was really simple with just the nature sounds, but I think it really made it tranquil and added so much to it. And then Bastion is just a really incredible game. This is our most recent episode as of the time we're recording this, and I think this episode was really great because it was a really good story. This was a challenge because there's a lot of imagery and there's some jumping around, but I think it turned out really well, and I'm really proud of that story. And that script was really tough to write just because of all the things going on, but then just the script itself. But it ended up being one I was really proud of and really enjoyed. What are your thoughts, though?
I agree. So both were fantastic. Bastion was a huge undertaking for you, and I didn't realize how tough that was going to be until you kind of explained it to me. Because I hadn't played it in so long. I did play it. That's a callback to a joke in that episode. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to watch it. I did play that game. But I forgot just how much of an undertaking that game would have been. I didn't realize how long it was and kind of all the details of that game. And you did a fantastic job writing a script that really made it cohesive and understanding what needed to be said to relate that story to the audience, I think, to the storygoers. Whereas Firewatch is it's a tale of relationships and the spookiness of your world when you feel that it's against you. But then the beauty of the world when you're kind of living for it and you're living for life. It's a beautiful game, and the story's fantastic. And again, you need a lot of imagery to tell that story. There's not a whole lot of dialogue in Firewatch unless it's between, I think, Henry, I believe, and Delilah.
Yeah.
I think I have a winner in my mind, at least.
Yeah, me too.
But again, I'm feeling now just like you were with Outlast and Shadows of the Colossus, where like both are fantastic. So I am curious what your perspective is, what your choice is. I could probably concede to you because I love both so much.
I think for me, there is one here who I loved both of these. There's one here that I think I think I have a clear winner on this one. So
okay. I'm very curious now. Okay. I want to know which one's okay. All right.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
3,
2, 1. Firewatch. Yeah. I mean, Bastion's great.
Yes.
But yeah.
Bastion was great, and I loved that script by the end of it. And it was really fun to record, even though it did murder your voice. You did an incredible job, but it did murder your voice. But just the dialogue between the narrator was just so impactful and interesting, and I loved that unreliable narrator piece of that just added this extra layer to the whole story that was just really incredible. But yeah, I think I enjoyed Firewatch. The discussions of Firewatch and the recording of Firewatch, I think, were more meaningful to me or had more of an impact on me, that I kept thinking about it in that game just because of how grounded it was and how real it felt. Even like just, I remember when walking in the woods today, like there's that tranquil piece to that felt you could connect to this game because of those experiences. So yeah, I think I feel great about that.
Yeah. I think too, really, because we still have a minute 20, if you don't mind me saying something really fast. Please. What I love about Firewatch is how scary that game can be when you feel like scared and the world's against you, when you feel like there's a danger behind you, and how the woods can create that for you. And then by the end of the game, spoiler alert, when things have kind of resolved itself, that beauty and the peace of that nature that surrounds Henry becomes tranquil and kind of warming, where it was scary in a sense. Now it's become this kind of beautiful thing, though it's all on fire and he has to leave. But and just that final moment with him and Delilah, when they agree that they cannot be near each other anymore, they have to go live their lives, and that means that that means separating and being apart, and they can't really be friends but they'll always be friends. And how that's such a meaningful thing. I think people get really hung up on the fact that they need to maintain their friendships, you need to be close to their friends, but I think true friendship is like when you could separate and come back together again. Yeah. So that's kind of what I got from that game. It's a beautiful ending. Fantastic. Yeah. So I agree.
All right, great. Next we have Assassin's Creed and Shadow of the Empire.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Another tough
that's
one.
A hard one.
Assassin's Creed was our first guest episode. With our friend Dave.
Oh my god.
So there's that piece to that, and then Shadow of the Empire was I think our first and only Star Wars game we've done so far, but it was just so fun to record, and the script is so good with that one. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this one, Eric?
This one's going to be a really hard one for me. I already know it, for different reasons. So with Assassin's Creed, that was really, really hard to write. I wrote that script. It was really, really hard. And to Dave's credit, and we really should, at least I want to thank him again. He didn't really want to do voices at first, but was open to doing Desmond's, and it turned out great. Like, he really did a great job. For someone who didn't want to do voices at first, he really killed it. He did fantastic. I think, again, Assassin's Creed is this repetitive type of game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. It's great to play especially when you enjoy it, but it's hard to write for. So I was very self-conscious about that, and I messed up someone's name a good half of the way through the recording until I realized I had to do like a special little intro to say, hey, I messed up this name, I'm so sorry, because it's just impossible to record that all over again. It never would have worked. But I think again, that was our first guest episode. That was a huge undertaking for us at Tales to have 3 people and to edit that. It was a challenge, but the reward was really great. I'm actually really excited to do Assassin's Creed 2, but I need to make, or whoever writes the script, we just take our time writing it. Again, Assassin's Creed is a massive undertaking for a script. There's many people who probably put their hands in that pot when they're actually writing the original script. So, but so then going Shadows of not the Colossus, Shadow of the Empire. That was just such a fun script. I loved doing the voices. They had the robot. That was my first time, I think, doing a robot voice in our editing, which is so much fun. I was just so jazzed that we could do that. And then doing Dash Render, or however I did the voice. It was just so much fun. It's such a good time. Especially for a game that I remember being so in love with and watching it again and writing the script and thinking, okay, this game didn't hold up as much as I thought it did when I was a kid. It's just kind of like the fact that Boba Fett gets in his Slave One and literally Dash Render is able to beat him without any spaceship. I just this doesn't make any sense, but it's pretty fun. Luke Skywalker's weird, but whatever, who cares? It was just such a fun script to write and record. I am so hung up on what to do. I keep rambling. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
This is a tough one. I think, so with this one, I think there's, the two pieces here are the impact of this had with our first guest and doing that undertaking, and then how much fun it was making Shadow of the Empire. So those for me are the two competing things here. Our first guest episode, which was a huge undertaking, ended up turning out really well, even with how monstrous that script was. And then Shadow of the Empire was just really, really fun just to record. It was kind of a lighthearted, fun one that we just kind of threw in there, but it ended up being really good and special. This one is tough for me too. I don't think I think it's probably harder for you because you wrote both these scripts again. You have like a more meaningful connection to both of these. I don't have one that clearly is standing out. I think there's one for me that I'd be happy with the other one. There's one that I think is there's one I think I'd give it to over the other, but they're both great.
I think there's one. Yeah, I'm so sorry, I didn't catch you. I thought you stopped up. I think there's one that's more deserving of the other, I believe, in my mind. Though I think both are fantastic for different reasons, like you said. I think what you just said to me really kind of helped me pick my answer. So I think I'm ready when you are.
Okay, all right. I think I'm ready too.
Okay,
all right, here we go.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1. Assassin's Creed. Yeah. It was just such a milestone for us. Like we had our first guest. We'd edit 3 voices and make it work. And it was a challenge, but man, was it cool. It was just a lot of work, but the payoff was so amazing that it made us want to keep doing guest appearances, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Our last one in the first round is the first Outlast versus Infamous. Outlast versus Infamous, which is a really tough one.
It is. I'm trying to realize that a lot of the ones that you wrote have done really well. Compared to, a lot of these are my scripts.
I don't know about that because I think the first bunch. I don't think that's necessarily true. Which I will also say,
it's a compliment.
One of the things that jumped out to me, which was most mild, is do you know what our most downloaded episode is?
Actually, I imagined it was BioShock, but I wasn't sure.
There's one that is 11 more than BioShock.
Really?
Bedtime Stories. Super Mario 64 episode 1 has 95 or 94 downloads. It's just the most downloaded episode by a good margin, but
which is cool.
Yeah, which is really cool. Which I did not. That just came out of left field for me, but.
No, I never would have thought that. I wonder. I think there's a decent drop off between 1 and 2, episode 1 and episode 2 of that. I wonder because of the sound effects. I really hope the sound effects thing. As eventually we just removed. If you haven't watched the story, or I'm sorry, if you haven't listened to the Bedtime Stories, we removed the sound effects. I just thought they were too jarring and too much. So if you didn't like the first or second Mario 64, just know that we have since removed the sound effects to kind of help with the process of falling asleep. But that is not for this conversation right now, I'm realizing. So yeah, Outlast and Infamous. Again, I wrote these ones. I wrote both of these. Infamous is a game that I truly love, and I just desperately need some kind of remaster or remake. Like, it's just ridiculous. I think it's on the PlayStation now, but I just don't want to even appease Sony and their rude holding of Infamous without releasing it. They're kind of forcing it on the PlayStation Now network to make you want to go and play it and subscribe, and I just refuse. I'll crush. I'll cave eventually, but Infamous is such a great game. I love Infamous because it really stood out to me as a game that I can kind of relate with in terms of how I see the world. I like to think that I'm a person that does who makes good choices, and Infamous is a game that almost makes you feel like making the right choice is detrimental towards you, but overall you're happy that you made it, and I like that. It made me feel good about myself. And then also being bad was just kind of fun to let loose and to not do something that maybe you wouldn't necessarily want to do. Whereas Outlast was a game that, again, so scary. It's during our Halloween month, which is great. I missed that. I cannot wait for next October. It's going to be so much fun again. But it was, again, a scary game. We did all these crazy voices. The doctor in the game I say doctor, he's not really a doctor, but Kruger, I think is his name, who cuts, spoilers, Miles, I believe's fingers off, was such a crazy moment in reading that. It was just so scary and spooky and so good. I think that game... I think we did a really good job covering that game. So, but what do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I think Outlast was one where it's one of my first, at least in my brain, where like the voices really stand out. We did voices in other ones before Outlast, but the voices in Outlast I remember being just really exciting and really, really great. I think you did a lot of really good practicing on those to really make those stand out and pop. And then again, that was like one of our second spooky episodes, and the first one that was like the real traditional, like terrifying. You're in this, you know what I mean? Minute to minute is terrifying, scary. That I think you captured really well. And I have this like distinct image of the twins in that jail cell just talking about you as you climb, and just that is like, you know, burned into my mind. I've never played this game. I don't know what the visuals look like, but that image of your reading is like burned into my mind because it was just so spooky. Cool. And then Infamous is a really great game, and I played Infamous, and I think I didn't really understand until we talked about it how well it captured that kind of superhero decision-making process where you're making a decision that is possibly detrimental to you, but because you're a hero and because you have to do the right thing, you have to do it anyway, and it's going to maybe make your life harder, but you really have to. And it's one of the first games where I think that was a game mechanic, that you by making the right decision, you are punished in some way, which I think is the right way to make a decision-making game. We'll talk about it, I think, with BioShock, where in BioShock, you can make the right choice or the wrong choice. You get, like, good stuff either way. You're equally rewarded in both ways, whereas in this game, you weren't necessarily equally rewarded. You got, and maybe not mechanically, but the world was angrier with you and treated you in a certain way, which I think was really fun. And again, some of the things were harder, and I thought that was really great. And the discussions around that, I think I really loved in Infamous. This one's tough for me, because Outlast is a game that was really fun to record and really spooky. Infamous, I think the ideas and the recording and the concepts we talked about were really interesting. So they're both great.
We have 7 seconds. So
okay, we got to decide. Okay, all right. Well, I think, do we want to do a countdown or do we just want to like throw it out?
I think we just go. Let's just do it. Okay. Oh, it's beeping my ear.
Okay, all right. I'm leaning toward Infamous. What are your thoughts?
I was thinking Outlast. Actually.
All right. How many seconds do we have left?
Oh, we can restart. We can do. How about we put a 2-minute timer on?
Okay.
We'll do 2 minutes.
We have to at the end of 2 minutes. Okay. Why Outlast? Yeah. Win me over there, Eric.
Yeah, Outlast. I just think was such a great story because I love the idea that it was this person who was trying to take down this corporation in the way that he thought was best, and ends up he ends up in this horror-filled asylum, right, where he instantly probably regrets his decision. It's a story, actually, a lot like Infamous. Crap, I was going to try to prove my point with this, and it's not going to help. It's a story about a regular person thrown into a terrifying and crazy situation, and they have to navigate the best they can, which does not help my case because that explains Infamous also. Crap. I don't know how to prove. I think Outlast was just so... it just kind of gripped me and pulled me in and made me feel like that world was just like so real in a sense. Thank God it's not, but it's just a game that really gripped me, I guess, is my point. Infamous also gripped me, but I think in the recordings of it, they both turned out great, but I think Outlast just had me a little more. What do you think?
Okay. I mean, I think with me, I enjoyed the narrative and the storytelling of, I think, Outlast more. I was more engaged and engrossed with that. The discussions of Infamous, I think, are for me what I thought was really interesting. That being said, I think if... for our listeners, that's kind of where I am in that piece. I think Outlast was a better, more engaging recording and script and story. Infamous, I think I liked our discussions more. But I think looking at the next game that this is going to go up against, I'm fine either way because I think it's just going to be blown out of the water. But I'm happy with going with Outlast because I think that was a really great episode. I'm happy with that.
Actually, I was just about to say I was going to go with. I think my own point pushed me over the edge. So I'm actually very okay with going with Infamous. I love the idea of a normal person going through a crazy story. And as crazy as Miles' stories was and Outlast, I think Cole's was more relatable because we're both people who really try to do the right thing for people. So maybe that's, I think, the better one now.
Okay, all right. Well, then.
All right. Sure. That was a crazy one.
We'll all right,
Infamous wins that one.
Infamous. Okay, sure. All right, so Eric, now we're in our second round where things are going to get harder. And maybe going forward, I don't know if this is going to be a good idea or a bad idea. I don't know how we want to do this, but maybe we shouldn't change the format mid-episode. But we have two games here. This is going to be, I don't know if this is going to be tough because I think one of these is so instrumental in our podcast and one of those also very good. So for the next, we're just going to go into it. For the next round, our first episode of this round is number 1 seed, BioShock, our very first episode that we ever recorded and made, versus Soma, which is our first spooky episode that we made. Both of these were really meaningful. Both of these were really great. I think, for me, BioShock was so monumental, and it was our first episode, and it's one that we've keep coming back to over and over again. In throughout our episodes, even I think in even most recent episodes, that one I think is really big for me. Soma was great. We've talked a lot about Soma. I want to give BioShock some time. I think the story of BioShock is incredible. The script was really fun to write. I think, again, our first episode, we were testing out adding voices. We were testing out recording for the first time. There's just so much kind of nostalgia tied to BioShock that this one I don't think is as tough. But what are your thoughts?
I was just thinking about how we recorded that first time ever for BioShock. It was a day that I was like really nervous. The script was done, obviously. I had read it over like 5 times. It was pretty lengthy also, and I was very nervous about it. I had watched the YouTube video for it over and over and over again. And I remember just sitting in my den where my computer is. It was kind of dark and stormy out, if I remember correctly. Maybe not. It could have been. It could not have been that way, but in my mind it was. I was by myself in my apartment, and we got on, and I was just so nervous. And I remember having such a hard time reading the script and doing the voices. And this was around the time we were still like when we first started. We weren't sharing the voices. Like one person would kind of do all the voices, which is like so interesting that we chose that at first. And now look where we've come. You know, we're both sharing voices, which is I think way better. Yeah. Obviously, it's an evolution of the podcast. But yeah, I think BioShock was such a game that we both obviously loved, and it just made sense why it was first for us. That it makes me happy that was our first game, but it also makes me very sad because like we have come so far. I would love to see what BioShock would be now if we re-recorded it. And one day we might. You never know. Like it could totally happen. But like you, Ryan, I think one sticks out more for me than the other. Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to do a countdown, or do you just want to throw it out? What do you think?
I'll throw it out there. I think it's BioShock.
Yeah, I think it's BioShock too. I think it's just so special, and it's BioShock is going to be hard to beat because of how much kind of memory and nostalgia is attached to that. But we'll see how it goes. Next we have Black Mesa, Half-Life, and The Secret of Monkey Island. 2 very different episodes. I
love this.
I loved both of them. Black Mesa because I just love the Half-Life story so much, and like I've talked about, the G-Man scene at the end is so impactful to me as to like how to make just this really interesting, mysterious character. The Secret of Monkey Island is probably one of the most fun scripts to write. I love the writing in that game. I loved that script. I loved all those characters. It was just so nonsensical and wacky and wild, and I really enjoyed Monkey Island a lot. I think Monkey Island was also one of the first ones that I remember where I was adding sound effects to it and adding some things to it, which was fun. I remember like adding the cannonball sound. I remember adding the jungle sounds. I remember like adding the music before we started for that one. Which was really, I think is something now I do oftentimes in our episodes. But yeah, those are both really good ones. What are your thoughts on Half-Life, Black Mesa, versus The Secret of Monkey Island?
Yeah, what a polar opposites on the spectrum of games that we've covered. Black Mesa was cool because, again, I had no experience with Half-Life. I've never heard of Half-Life. I never was deep into that story. So going over it was really cool because I loved kind of picturing it in my mind because it's a game that is it's pretty, not old, but like, you know, it's a couple generations behind, obviously. So like, I never thought about going back to it, until he talked about it, and then it made me want to play it. And I still haven't. I want to really badly, and I will one day, I'm sure, because Gabe Newell will allow us to be voice actors in every Steam game after Portal 3, which we'll talk about in our Portal conversation, I'm sure. But I think Black Mesa was really cool because, again, the story was so interesting, and I love the story, again, of a normal person thrown into a crazy situation. And then we have The Secret of Monkey Island, it's so interesting because I didn't really think about it until now, how special of a story that was. Because I remember telling my partner that, like, hey, like, Ryan finished the episode, we should like listen and see what it sounds like. And when it came on, it was like, wow, that really made the episode. Like, that was crazy, and our voices were so funny.
Chuck Ghost voice was so fun to do.
He's so good. I loved playing the old man, hitting on the woman, and he's like, "You're lost, baby!" Like something really funny and stupid that made me laugh so hard. It was just a crazy, funny story that it just I always enjoyed the funny ones, possibly the most, just because we had such a good time making them. Though, the serious ones are also great too. Some of those fantastic, and Black Mesa also. I think I have a winner on my side. What about you?
I think so too. I think both of these I'm really proud of, but one of them feels like just a better episode, a better story that we told.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to do a countdown? Or just want to say it? What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, I don't know if the countdown is useful or if the countdown just makes it like so we're talking over each other. I don't know. But
oh no, I think it's cool because we can match up the 3.
Oh, that's true.
Ones.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
Yeah.
3,
2, 1. Secret of Monkey Island. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Black Mesa was great.
Yeah, Black Mesa was great. I think with these two, Black Mesa was a script that I worked really, really hard on. But the Secret of Monkey Island script, I think, was better. The story was better. The recording turned out better. It'd be interesting to go back. Monkey Island, Black Mesa, I think I included like almost everything in that story. Monkey Island, I had learned, or at least in my scripts, I wanted to tune it down to just the really important stuff and the really good stuff. Right. And I think it made it a better episode than the 2-parter of Black Mesa, which I still really enjoyed. But I think Monkey Island was the better time, the better script.
I think not only was Monkey Island just a lot of fun to record, obviously, but I think that moment where I turned it on after you finished editing and those sound effects came out, it just blew me away. I was like, I couldn't have imagined that's where our podcast would go to. I always thought it would be more like an imagination kind of thing where people kind of put it in their minds as they're thinking of it, but those sound effects just really help in that regard to just paint this picture in your mind as you're listening to it. It just is so cool. It is so, you just did them. You set the bar so high for us in the best way. Like, that's what you should always be striving to, which is great. And sometimes, hopefully we hit that mark every time. Yeah. Life gets crazy and sound effects are hard to put in, especially when you didn't know how to do them. And at least when I did my sound effects the first time, I messed it all up.
Yeah, I did too.
So I really, but it's just, that was such a huge milestone, I think, for us and the tales and kind of show what we can become and where we can go. It was so cool. Yeah. It was just fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. The next one we have Banjo-Kazooie and Ori and the Blind Forest.
This is hard.
This is tough. And we've here. Do you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah. So I wrote Banjo, and I remember being very nervous about it because it's a game where I had to take out a huge. Oh, I forgot to reset the timer. It's beeping in my ear. I restarted it. It was a game where I had to really take out the majority of the middle of it. It was so repetitive and so it's just a story you couldn't really tell without like a lot of imagery that kind of works for the boss battle only games like Shadow of the Colossus and Fury. For Banjo-Kazooie, it just didn't work. I tried my best with it and it just was not landing. But I think what we did, it was a shorter story than our usual stories, but it turned out really good because I think we did such a good job with the voice acting, how much fun we had with it. It was just a lot of fun. Grundy was just a fun villain to talk about, and it actually did a really good job with the social commentary of that game in terms of what beauty is in our societal views, which was crazy. It blew my mind even talking about it because this is an N64 game. It's supposed to be funny, silly, but we were pulling these parallels between our literal societal views on what beauty is. It's so cool. That's what is so cool about this podcast is that we just pull these crazy things out of nowhere that we see, and our perspectives can really blossom, for lack of a cheesier term, or less cheesier term, I suppose. But it was just really cool. It turned out way better than I was anticipating. I was so nervous about it, and it just turned out great. Whereas, again, Ori and the Blind Forest, the story is just fantastic. The story just grips you and pulls you in. It makes you feel emotions, which, I think a lot of times video games struggle to do unless you're really playing those games. I think you can feel fearful, you can feel happy, but feeling that sadness, that compassion side of it in a video game story is a difficult thing to do, and Ori and the Blind Forest does a great job of it. But, Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think Banjo-Kazooie is not a game that I had any kind of really connection to. It's a game I experienced, but diving in to learn about Rare when we were doing the Banjo-Kazooie episode and I was doing some background research on Rare made me fall in love with that company so much. Just how whimsical and wonderful all of their games were, and I ended up going out and playing some Sea of Thieves because I was so that game and that company was so inspiring after doing that episode. And then it was a milestone for us in that we gave ourselves the creative freedom to do something different and create our own version of this story that was just so fun and so interesting that it ended up being a really great episode that I really loved. We've talked about Ori a lot, and I think it's a really wonderful episode. It turned out really well, and I really enjoyed that game. But for me, I think Banjo-Kazooie was just so engaging, and even though it was one of our shorter episodes, I think it was the perfect length for telling that story.
Wow, my answers flip-flopping back and forth. I had an answer, then when you were talking, I was like, oh my god, he's making such good points. I don't know. I think I have my answer, but I am so wishy-washy on this one. I'm curious what you have to say.
Let's see what we got. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, Banjo-Kazooie.
And it breaks my heart. I love Ori and the Blind. That ending, it just is so good. It grips you and it shows you how the bad guy can be relatable, which is such a cool thing. A relatable bad guy in a video game is fantastic, or any narrative, honestly, because it really makes you sympathize with that person, and it also makes you want to understand them, and you understand where they're coming from, and it makes it harder to fight against them. But then Banjo-Kazooie was, again, such a creative freedom project for us. It really pushed us to be different in our storytelling, and we pulled out these crazy parallels about societal views that I did not anticipate talking about until we recorded the episode, which was just so cool. And that's the whole point of the podcast. And enjoy video game stories, but it's what do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the reason that it's Banjo-Kazooie for me, it's for the reasons I talked about, but also if you think about our podcast and the goal of our podcast, which was to take these games that, maybe you've played, maybe you haven't, and give you another way to experience them that is meaningful and interesting and different. I think Banjo-Kazooie kind of captured that in such a great way that if someone was to say, hey, what's this weird episode? Can you play me an episode? Banjo-Kazooie would be one of the first picks. Here's this, check it out. You get what's going on in Banjo-Kazooie. You get a little bit of us and are talking about the world in there. It's just so great, and I think it turned out so well that I think that's for me. Banjo-Kazooie was kind of what I think when you first even pitched me the idea of the aim of a podcast is Tales from the Cartridge. Banjo-Kazooie is what I imagined. You taking us these old games that were meaningful and wonderful and giving them a new fresh coat of paint and getting to talk about them. Yeah, which is really fun. Yeah,
it's just so cool. I love how games like that can make you think about something that you never would have thought you would think about playing a band. It's just a silly game from the 90s, but it made me, at least, I think probably both of us, really think about the themes of that game, the surprising things that probably weren't even intentional of that game that we now as adults can see and be like, wow, that's crazy. So, yeah.
Okay, that's a great one.
That was a hard one. That was a hard one. That broke my heart. That was a hard one to do.
Up next, we have Borderlands, which is one of our first episodes, versus Red Dead Undead Nightmare.
Oh man! Borderlands was our second episode. That was quite an episode to pick, honestly. In retrospect, because the way that story, the way that ended for us in Borderlands was surprising to me, and how our views. So, spoilers, unless you've listened to Borderlands, which you probably have if you're a storygoer. This is our second episode, so I imagine you might have probably a good chance. We didn't really like the story of Borderlands. No. Yeah, which is, if you had asked me before Tales had ever been created, if you asked me if I enjoyed the story of Borderlands, I probably would be like, yeah, it was fun. It was a good fun story. And I realized through Borderlands how skewed my perspective was in terms of kind of the raunchy humor, and how one joke would land and be funny to me, but the same similar joke from another character would land and it would be said and it wouldn't land, and how much it kind of hypocritical it felt like for me to feel that way, and just kind of. It just kind of opened my eyes to myself and my perspective, and how I still think I have a lot of room to grow in terms of how I respond to jokes and views of that sort, if that makes sense. Yeah. Whereas again, we've said this about Red Dead Nightmare. It's just funny. It's a good. It's a story. Both games are very humorous, but in such different ways. Yeah. One is very raunchy. One is just funny because of a scenario that it's being placed in, which you wouldn't expect. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. But I'm curious what you how you feel about these. This matchup is very interesting to me. I actually think it's a really good matchup.
Yeah, I think it's good too. Borderlands was, like you said, the second script, and probably one of the hardest because there is so much to Borderlands that to capture in that story, and I tried really hard to like add weird gameplay stuff into the narrative to make it feel more like the game, and try to balance the weird things going on in the story. And like you said, it was when we were talking about like pitching episodes, we're like, okay, maybe let's throw one in there that maybe we're not sure about. And that's where I added Borderlands, because I again, like you, it was a game I loved playing and really enjoyed. But then going back and watching it again, I was like, this is kind of terrible. The storytelling here isn't very good. There's just weird stuff going on. That it was just so strange, and it just didn't, like you said, some things landed, some things didn't, but in such a different way. And with Red Dead, it was fun to record it, it was fun to read, it's also really fun to watch, and I think the writing in Red Dead really carried that so much versus the writing in the first Borderlands, and they're so different. That being said, Borderlands was a really meaningful episode because it was my very first script that I wrote, and it was really tough to write. I'm as a person, I'm just not somebody who super enjoys writing that much, so it was tough to get out there and edit it and get to. In the end, I was actually really proud of it, but being the second episode, or being the first script I wrote, I was really unsure about it going into it and how I wanted to frame it, and cutting stuff out felt really weird, and so that was a really tough one. Both of these I really loved. One of these I think was more fun to record. One of these was really meaningful, so this is a tough one for me.
Yeah, I think both definitely have their meaningfulness to us and entails, but I agree. I think there's one that stands out to me as the winner.
Okay, all right, you ready?
All right, yep, let's do it. All
right, 3,
2, 1.
Red Dead.
Yeah. I mean, say what you will about Borderlands. I think Borderlands as a game is fun. It's a good game to play. It's fun. I remember we really enjoyed Borderlands 1, but from a narrative perspective, I think it struggles. It really struggles. The gameplay really hinges on it. And I'm actually kind of glad we picked a game that we ended up not really enjoying, which doesn't happen, spoilers, too often in our episodes, which maybe we should start trying to do more in retrospect. Coming up with games that maybe we didn't enjoy, which I have a few in my mind, would be really fun to cover. But yeah, I think Undead Nightmare just did such a good job with its humor. It was so funny. The dialogue didn't have to be raunchy to deliver that humor. The humor was just spot on. It was very, very well done, and just a fun story to record together.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't do this next one.
Okay, here we go. The next one. This is a tough one. We have Portal and Outlast Whistleblower. So we have Portal, which was that our fourth episode? Fifth episode,
our
right?
Fifth.
Yeah, our fifth episode, the last in our first batch we released. And that was my second script, third, because
second script, because I think Last of Us we split in two.
Yeah, it was two parts. Yeah, so that was my second script. I think I had learned from my first script, and I kind of really tried to tone down Portal, and Portal, it wasn't a long game, but the discussion around it and that game I just love so much that it made it a really fun time. Outlast Whistleblowers, even though it was just like a couple months after we did Portal, the quality was so much better in how we recorded that episode, in how we did the voices of that episode. They're just they're not very far apart in our timeline when we release them, but they feel like just two totally different podcasts. Putting those episodes out, which is just so wild and interesting.
It's crazy
to think about that. But these are both I really, really love. This is tough. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is such a hard one. And again, this is your second script, right? And Portal's a hard one to write for. That was a hard, I imagine, exactly because I didn't write it, but I mean, I can imagine that's a hard one to write for, especially if it's our second script. Now, if you were to tackle it, like, he has this. It's a hard one, but you got this. He has enough experience. As a second script, that was a hard one to do, but we did such a good job. I remember recording that last episode together and thinking, oh my God, we did our first 5 episodes of this. And like, it was monumental. Like, releasing those 5 episodes felt amazing. It felt absolutely amazing. And then, you have Outlast Whistleblower, which again, like you said, it only, like, I think we released October 30th, August, September, October. So yeah, just 2 months. Roughly apart. I had to edit that all out, but it's 2 months apart. I couldn't think of my months off the top of my head. Okay. A lot of pressure. 2 months apart, that amount of time, you would think nothing would really change that much, but wow, did we really go above and beyond what we had been doing when we first started. And like, I think that you see how much we had gained in experience and how that translated over to our recording and our editing. It was just so cool. Such a cool experience.
Yeah.
I have one. This is hard.
This is hard. Really hard. One of the things we didn't even talk about is that in Portal was like our first like inside joke, right? Where we started like with the storygoers, the Gabe Newell voice acting thing. That was the first time we started that bit that kind of lasted for a handful of episodes, and we still reference. And that kind of started where we would like make jokes about being voice actors. That was the episode. That was just really wacky and fun. But again, they're just in two totally different places. In one episode, I would be more proud to put out now than the other, I think. But I love them both. I love them both.
Ryan, you're telling me that was a joke? I thought Gabe...
No.
For Portal 3. He's going to hire us, right? We're going to be in Portal 3,
yeah,
right?
Of course we are. Yeah, of course.
Oh, God, okay.
He just called me and talked to me and said, there's just production's behind. He's going to reach out to us soon.
I am telling you, we still have a minute and 37 seconds. I'm going to go all out on this. I am telling you right now, regardless of whatever game you pick right now, I'm going to throw this out here. Ryan and I would be absolutely fantastic as a portal gun for Shell in Portal 3, where both portals have voices. The guns have two different voices. Ryan and I would be the voices of the portals. We would criticize the replacement of things, criticize each other. It would be fantastic. It would be such a great game. Fun narrative. We don't need robots telling us what to do. GLaDOS would take a back seat because we would do fantastic.
Yeah.
Gabe, you can do this. You run Steam, like you run Valve. You got this. Like, just put us in. Tag us in.
Yeah.
We can do this. We can handle this. We've done 23 episodes. We can do this. We got this.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, in that respect, I do have one in there.
Okay. All right. Are you ready then?
I am ready.
All right.
3, 2, 1. Outlast.
Yeah. Portal was a really great script. It was a really great episode to do. But again, I think our quality, the jump in quality from Portal to Outlast was huge. And if you were to ask me to give you 2 episodes that you could judge it on, I would give you Outlast, because we were finishing up our spooky episodes, and it felt really good. The voices felt really good, and it was just a really good time. But Portal I loved, and I'm excited to go back and maybe give another go sometime. But I think Outlast is the better episode.
I agree. I think I look forward to the idea, and we have ideas about going back to old stories. I think when the time is right, and we have more time to put towards these stories and more resources maybe in the future, depending on where Tales goes and what we do with it. But I really look forward to covering those first 5 episodes again one day. I really look forward to doing that. BioShock and Borderlands and Last of Us, we split Last of Us in 2, so really those first 4 games. I look forward to covering those again. I think if we had that same quality that we do right now, back then, those would have been even better. And back then they were fantastic for us. That they were like, this is insane that we did this. Right. So I look forward to that day. I really do.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right, our next episode, our next matchup.
I don't want this one. This one's way too
really
hard.
Tough. This one's tough. So we have Baldur's Gate. Which was with our second guest, right? Third guest. We have Baldur's Gate with our third guest, our friend Jesse. And then we have Firewatch, which this is a really tough matchup. Baldur's Gate, Jesse wrote an incredible script.
Oh my god.
He did an incredible job doing the voice acting for, and it was just a really fun time just to put that together. That being said, it was a monster of an episode. It was long, took a long time to edit. It turned out really well, and I'm really proud of it, how it ended. I think that ending sequence when you have the spooky music and him narrating what was happening, I got chills when I was putting that together. I loved that so much. And like we've talked about Firewatch is just this really beautiful game that, in what a juxtaposition, Baldur's Gate, this big fantasy epic game about you saving the world from the god of murder, and Firewatch, this really interpersonal story about 2 people who are trying to work through things that they do not have the tools to work through, and leaning on each other to try to work through that, and escaping the world and using escapism to try and forget their problems. What 2 totally different experiences, but really tough, because these are both really fun episodes and really great times.
Yeah, such different episodes, but man, they both shine for such different reasons. And I will say this too. I'm glad I can say this on the podcast. It just was so interesting. The behind the scenes of Baldur's Gate for me were so impactful because so Jesse came on the show and just did amazing. Like just did amazing. To the point where actually maybe he really did. Like it was literally crazy, and it made me feel not self-conscious, but it made me stop and think like, oh my god, like this Jesse is fantastic with his voice. His script was just flawless in my eyes, and I just like it motivated me to want to be better. And actually, our episode that we had recorded technically after this one was actually Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, and listening to Jesse and his story and just how great it was, it inspired me to then rewrite Oddworld the way I did into the way it turned out. That whole different take we did on it with a narrator and Abe and the way they talked to one another in a sense. And working with Jesse and doing Baldur's Gate inspired me to be better, which is why not only is that episode fantastic, but it was so impactful to me because it helped me to grow as a storyteller, which is something I'll always cherish. And I have heard the rumblings of a second coming of Jesse soon.
Yes.
And I'm so excited. I cannot wait to feel self-conscious again and inspired to be better. I can't wait.
Yeah.
So, but then, like you said, Ryan, Firewatch is a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story about real scenarios and people that struggle to get through their problems, and the idea of pushing those problems away only makes it worse. And the beautiful life lesson of just tackling your problems and not running away, because they always catch up to you.
Yeah.
So in my mind, as much as I hate saying it, I have a winner, I think.
Yeah, I do too. I do too, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you ready? Yep. 3, 2, 1. Baldur's Gate. Yeah, it was just such a fun episode. And like you said, Jesse's script writing and voice work was just so inspiring to then make us want to do everything better from there on out and try to push as much as we can, like adding the sound effects and adding things. It all is the goal to make it this as best as it can with the time that we have. And that episode really helped us to kind of light a fire under us and really want to put out some really good stuff. And I think our stuff has improved since then. I think it's just going to keep doing that. And I can't wait for Jesse's return, because I loved his script and his voices so much, and I can't wait to have them be a part of our podcast again.
Oh no, Jesse's fantastic. All our guests are great. Don't get me wrong.
Yes, all of our guests have been really wonderful. Yes, of course.
But having Jesse on was fantastic because he just really went above and beyond for us, which is great. Like, he wrote a fantastic script. Like, his voices were flawless. Like, it's just I think you're right. It really lit a fire under us and showed us that we could even be better than we thought we already could. That we already were. So very cool. This next one, I keep saying it. This is just getting harder and harder. The one after this is a little bit easier, I think. Yes. But this one is really tough. It's really, really, really hard. Yeah.
So our next matchup is Uncharted, which was our second guest episode, versus Assassin's Creed, which was our first episode. Both of these were wonderful. The guests were instrumental in both of these. Adam did an incredible job with the Sully voice and really just selling and being a part of that conversation and bringing just a really cool perspective to that story with his history side of things. And he was just really wonderful and fantastic to have. And just the story of Uncharted is so special. After this episode, me and my partner went back and replayed this whole series, and I fell in love with it again. And having this be where we started was really great. Assassin's Creed was a really great episode as well. Dave did an incredible job adding his perspective and thoughts to everything that was going on, and really kind of helping us dive deep into that story in a really meaningful way. That this makes it really tough. Both of these episodes turned out really great. Both of these are series that I love, and this is a tough one. Eric, you wrote these scripts. What are your thoughts here?
Oh, it's so hard. Like you said, Dave was our very first guest on Assassin's Creed. Did amazing, really went above and beyond, because he didn't necessarily want to do a voice, but he did Desmond, and he did a fantastic job. It just turned out so good. My only, if I'm being perfectly honest with you and the storygoers, is that the only thing that ever made me upset was that I messed up that voice. Because it was just such a stressful time to record with a guest for the first time. It was just, I want to make sure it's perfect, and it's just something I overlooked completely. With Uncharted, that was our second guest on the show, which is a little less stressful. And again, I knew Adam wasn't like a huge voice actor. Like he didn't want to do a lot of voices, but the fact that he stepped up and did Sully and did a fantastic job of Sully was awesome. I know that was probably not the easiest thing to do. And Uncharted is hard. It's so funny that we chose the games that were chosen as our guest episodes were huge scripts, huge scripts. Yeah. They're hard. It was really hard writing these ones. But again, I think that it paid off because they were so good. I don't know. This is so hard. Both were great. I love our guest episodes so much.
Yeah.
I think one stands out to me more than the other, I guess.
Okay.
I had to pick one, so I feel confident with what I want to pick.
I think so too. I don't know. I think this is a toss-up, but I think I have one.
Yeah.
I think so. I think we'll see. I'm not 100%. We'll see. Okay. Are you ready?
Me too. Ready.
Yep. 3, 2, 1. Uncharted. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I just think Uncharted was such a good... I think, honestly, it's just more of a preference for they feel the exact same for me. Both of these episodes do. I just think I had more... I think when it comes down to it, I had more fun, quote-unquote, with Uncharted than Assassin's Creed, just because of the context of the games. And it was just more fun with the joking part of it. Assassin's Creed didn't really have any jokes. It was more analytical, which is fine. It's good. I like the analytical parts, but I like having the fun parts too. So I think Uncharted stands out for me in that regard.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think I have similar reasoning. I think Uncharted. What I'm kind of reflecting on now is like maybe our more lighthearted kind of fun episodes. For us, are more fun for us to create, record, and then have guests on for, because it allows us to kind of relax a little bit. And like you said, the first guest episode, it was really tense and really, really scary to take on this huge script with this guest and then edit 3 parts that it was just a big undertaking. And then by our second one, Uncharted, both it's a more lighthearted game and a lighthearted experience, but we had a little bit more under our belt. We were able to put it together and kind of arrive at a pretty great place. So I think for that reason is why I have it there. I'm really interested to see with Assassin's Creed 2, which is a more lighthearted than the first Assassin's Creed, how that's going to turn out. There are some silly jokes in there. There is more of a character in that, so it'll be really interesting to see where that lands. But I think that's why Uncharted does it for me. Just as a story, I think it was more meaningful. Not necessarily our episode, but the story itself of Uncharted, I think, is better than the first Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay. This one I think is like a nice, both of these are incredible episodes. Both of these are really wonderful. But I think
they're all great.
All great. All of these are good. I think this next one is a little bit less stressful in deciding, because I think, at least for me, both of these are wonderful. But one of these I think is more kind of core to who we are as a podcast than the other one. Although both of these are asking really great discussions and led to some really great things. So this next matchup is The Last of Us, which was our third and fourth episode, which is our first two-parter, versus Infamous, which was, again, one we did later. But both of these are really interesting because they're a lot about perspective. But I think with The Last of Us, it is just such a nuanced game that was so fun to talk about and so fun to dissect. And it's a game where no matter how long you go without playing it, if you replay it, it's still really meaningful and asks these really interesting questions. And it's a game story that I will probably always come back to because of how meaningful it was. And just to have a space to talk about that just made it even better. Infamous, we've spent a lot of time talking about Infamous. It's a really great game. I love the dichotomy of good and evil and how your good decisions don't necessarily make your life easier, because they don't. But The Last of Us is just such a grounded and real game that is asking such difficult questions. What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, this one definitely is probably easier in my mind, but also, again, both great stories for very different reasons. Infamous is great because it's a normal person thrown in a crazy world, given superpowers. What are you gonna do? And I think Infamous was more relatable for me because I was basically playing as myself through the character of Cole McGrath. Which is fun. But also, as much as I can explore my own personal answers to the questions in Infamous, it was very still kind of holding me back in that regard. I couldn't be truly who I wanted to be in that game, in the choices I make. But in The Last of Us, it was just so gripping, and it was monumental for us to kind of tackle in one of our first 5 episodes, so much so that it had to be split into 2 episodes. And an actually funny little fact about The Last of Us for us here at Tales is that we released part 1 one week. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. We released part 1 and 2 together. We first released all 5 episodes of the very first 5 episodes. And The Last of Us 1 Part 2, right? The second half of the first game had more views for a long time than the first. And the first part, it made no sense. It was so weird. Actually, are you looking up right now how the
so
statistics are?
So it's still in the same. The second half has. So when I if on this in order to create this bracket, I brought up a list of all our most downloads for all of the 2-parters. I just added the number of the one that had the most downloads. Otherwise, Last of Us would have like 80 something or 70 something because it has 2. So the second episode has 43 downloads, and the first episode I think has like 25 or 26 or something like that. It's a really interesting difference, and I do not understand why. But it's really interesting that it got more downloads and more listens, which is so crazy.
It's crazy, especially because like The Last of Us is such a huge monumental game. People love it, and it's not one of our most popular episodes, which is very surprising to me. Yeah. I would have totally expected it would. It would be. I think why we both love the story of Last of Us. But I thought we also would kind of peek the heads of people because Last of Us Part 2 was kind of in the horizon of coming out. You know, it had been announced already. So I thought people might be like gravitating towards that as like a recap of Part 1 necessarily. But yeah, I mean, despite all that, though, I think I have a clear winner in my mind.
So now that we're talking about this, I'm thinking maybe the reason it did better is because of the SEO on the Part 2 part of The Last of Us Part 2. It just came out, and we released The Last of Us 1 Part 2. And I wonder if it just got more downloads because people thought that's what they were listening into.
Can't. Probably so disappointing for people.
It's okay. Just thinking about it, that is why we released that during that time, is because we wanted to kind of give people that primer. Maybe that is why Part 2 got more, is because Part 2 was actively out that time. But I think
we labeled it effectively. I just want to say for the record, we really put a lot of time into thinking about how to label that. So that's on you. People who don't listen to us anymore, that's on you. Mm-hmm. I don't feel bad about that.
Or like Google or whoever's putting these in front of people without understanding. But it's fine. We're just thanks for tuning in. I hope we stuck with us. But I
seriously.
think I think I was a clear one for me too.
Okay. All right. Ready?
You ready? Yep. 3,
2, 1.
The Last
of Us. Yeah. It's a clear winner. Oh, timer just went off too. Oh my god, right at the buzzer.
All right, now we're in the final 8, the grade 8 is their name. One thing to be aware of is I know nothing about sports, so I made this bracket not ever watching a sports bracket. So hopefully, I could just make up the incredible 8, whatever we make up is what it's going to be, because I don't know anything about sports. But we are at the final matchups in order to create the final 4, in order to create the semifinals. No, this is the final from the 4 games. Is that how this works?
I don't know. Yeah, so this is semi. You're right.
This is semifinals, right?
Right, and then
no, this is the
quarterfinals.
This is the quarterfinals.
That's and then semi.
Okay.
We don't watch enough sports.
Right. Okay. Well, either way, this is a tough one. We have BioShock, our very first episode, which again is so meaningful, and then The Secret of Monkey Island. This is a tough one for so many reasons. What a great matchup! This was not planned at all, but like. The first version of our podcast at BioShock, with no sound effects and just one of us reading, versus we have Monkey Island where we've added sound effects, we're sharing voices, we have this back and forth, this interesting dichotomy of 2 different snapshots of our podcast in this matchup here, which is just so interesting and wild. This is a really tough
one.
BioShock is meaningful because it's our first episode and it's such an incredible, meaningful story. The Secret of Monkey Island, I think, is when... The script of Monkey Island is, I think, when we're at our best, or it's this kind of this lighthearted, fun story that we get to kind of have interesting discussions about, and how this is a reflection of our culture in a meaningful way. That this is really tough. Eric, what are your thoughts here?
Oh my god, like you said, this is not planned. So my god, this is so hard. My thoughts are like, so BioShock, again, meaningful game to us. We've always loved BioShock as long as we've known each other. It's a game that the twists and turns are fantastic. It tells a very deep story without like going too deep in a sense. The characters are meaningful and impactful. Whereas Monkey Island was just a lot of fun. And again, it was an episode where we really went above and beyond what we had normally been doing and added the sound effects and brought to that next level. I mean, I'd say comparatively, the story of BioShock obviously is greater than the story of The Secret of Monkey Island. But I think what is kind of holding me back is the impact of these stories on Tales. One was our very first episode. One was the episode that propelled us ahead and kind of put us on this path of being better than we already had been. I think I have a winner. I don't know. As crazy as it is to say that, I thought I would struggle more. But I don't know. Are you struggling with?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I think this is really tough for the same reason you said. One is meaningful because it's our first episode, and it was kind of this. It kind of set the tone for we're gonna tell these stories and we're gonna really break them down, and we like dived into like the ideas behind BioShock, the really philosophies that informed that game that kind of give people an insight into that experience. And then Monkey Island was just like you said, we added sound effects and we added these voices, and it really kind of turned it from just two dudes reading a script to kind of this back and forth radio drama excitement with sounds and music that just feels really special. But this is really tough.
It's so tough. And I think I just remember BioShock just being this, like, again, it was very nerve-wracking because it was our very first time recording anything. And then comparing it to Secret of Monkey Island, where we're laughing and joking around and recording, and it's not a big deal because we've done it so many times at that point. Just polar opposites of each other in terms of the atmosphere and the feelings behind recording those episodes.
All right.
Man, all right. We have 2 minutes, so maybe we should just vote and then talk if we don't feel the same.
Ready?
Okay.
3,
2, 1.
The Secret of Monkey Island. Oh my goodness. It's so hard. That's so hard. It breaks my heart. Yeah, because I think, like you said, BioShock is the better story. There is a better story in BioShock. It is more meaningful. It is more interesting. It is just better. But Monkey Island, as an episode that we put out, was just so huge for us and such a leap and so different and interesting. And like you said, it was just so much more fun because we knew what we were doing. We were really comfortable. We had kind of hit a rhythm at that point. It was kind of after Halloween, and we were moving into kind of that November, December, where we had a little bit more time with things going on. And it was just a really wonderful episode. But that's really tough. I was kind of okay with BioShock winning this whole thing. Now I just have no idea what's going to happen. But we'll see. Yeah. All right. It's not going to get any easier from here, Eric, because now we have Banjo-Kazooie and Red Dead Undead Nightmare as our next matchup.
Such a weird night.
So weird.
Such a weird matchup. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, it's just as weird as the last one with the Red Dead. With what was it? Ori, Banjo-Kazooie and Ori. How crazy? Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah. Red Dead and Borderlands, just crazy matchup. So now we have Banjo and Red Dead, which is again another crazy matchup. But I think what's so interesting about this matchup is that, again, Banjo-Kazooie is such a crazy experience because we were pulling these crazy themes out of this game that I don't think even it was never the intention of the creators to tell that or make that point. It was just supposed to be this fun game, but we saw so many parallels at the time that it was made in. And then we have, Red Dead, which is just this. It's so well done. I mean, it's such a good time making it, and we just did such a great job with our voices. And it was during a time where we were branching out and doing our spooky stories. And again, that's one of my favorite times that we've done in Tales is the spooky story month in October. But then going back again, to Banjo-Kazooie, like Ryan said previously, we really branched out and tried something different with Banjo-Kazooie, making a smaller, more concise story, and it worked better than if you'd drawn it out for another hour talking about things that probably would have made you want to not listen to the podcast anymore because it was just kind of boring. But we made it work, and it became a more concise and enjoyable episode. So I don't know. Right?
This is exhausting. This is a tough one. I think Banjo-Kazooie, like I said, feels kind of like the epitome of what we kind of started out to do. We take these old game stories and kind of add something new to them and show them in a new light to share them with others, and then kind of tie it back to our culture and why that story had the impact it did, and what was maybe even not even meant to be, but what is in there. And then Red Dead is just this really wonderful, wacky script that was just so much fun to record, so much fun to put together, so much fun to write, that it was just really great. And again, this really lighthearted, wild experience. The only thing that's kind of giving me kind of a pullback from one to the other, maybe we'll wait until after we do the countdown, and then I'll get into it.
Okay. All right, well, let's just do it now.
Let's do it.
Answer
I think
and then,
so.
Okay.
I think so.
All right.
All right, ready?
I'm conflicted, but I'm ready. Yeah.
Right.
3, 2,
2,
1.
Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, no!
Interesting.
Oh, no.
Okay,
go
all
ahead.
right.
So start for us, please.
Yeah, the thing that's kind of, again, pulling Banjo head for me is because Banjo feels like just again, if somebody says, what's this Tales Cartridge thing about? Here, check out this Banjo-Kazooie episode, because it is just so perfect for what we were trying to do. In Red Dead, I love Red Dead. I love that story, but it doesn't feel like its own. Like, it only works because we're doing a spooky episode. I don't think if we put out Red Dead on its own any other time, it would have made any sense. It would have just been kind of silly and ridiculous. And I loved that script. Yeah. I love telling that story with you, but I don't think it is as full as Banjo. What about you? What drew you to Red Dead over Banjo?
That is such a good point, Ryan. Oh my god, it's so funny. Actually, I wrote Banjo and you wrote Red Dead. We were signing with each other's scripts. It's just so funny. I think why I got pulled to Red Dead because it's an episode that when someone listens to, it's just funny and enjoyable. It is not serious. It's not like we didn't talk about anything like too crazy, like societal views on body image, like. And granted, that's the whole point of the podcast, is to talk about perspectives and kind of deep dive into our thoughts and feelings about a game that, and Banjo-Kazooie did a great job at kind of bringing that out of us. I think Red Dead was just a lot of fun, and really it was just an enjoyable episode, and our voices really shined. But then again, we did a good job with Grundy too, and Banjo, I will say. That really was good too. But you know what, Ryan? I gotta be honest with you. So I think one of the best things about us, Ryan, is that we are, and hopefully storygoers, you've learned more about this as well through the journey of Tales, is that it's always good to be open with your perspective and to take in new information, to change your perspective for the better. I think it's always a good thing. If Ryan and I just dug our heels into this whole thing and would not refuse to change our perspectives, this would never have worked. But Ryan, you're so, when you frame it as this is what Tales of the Cartridge is, and you show this episode to somebody, and that's like reflective of who we are as in this podcast, and that just makes Banjo-Kazooie so special, and the fact that it brought out this whole side of this game that I don't think we ever saw coming, and how spur of the moment that was, and how like impactful it was to talk about, and how funny that story still was. So I'm ready to flip flop over to Banjo. Okay, all right. That's what I'm trying to say. That was a very good point. That was a very good point.
It just feels so representative of what we were trying to make and what we're doing here. And I think I loved Red Dead. I'm excited to dive into Red Dead more again someday and give that the full game a full shot. But I think if you handed somebody Red Dead Undead Nightmare, and maybe this isn't a great comparison to pull, handed somebody Undead Nightmare, handed somebody Banjo-Kazooie, I think they could walk away from having a better understanding of what the podcast is from one than the other, and that is kind of what won it over for me. But
yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Okay, you're comfortable with Banjo?
I'm comfortable with it. Yep, I'm comfortable with it. I don't know how we're going to decide the next that matchup.
That's we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Yeah. It's not getting any easier again.
No.
We have Outlast Whistleblower versus Baldur's Gate. Our third guest episode with Jesse and his Buckwild script. Beautiful writing, beautiful voice acting. And then we have Outlast, which our last spooky episode, which I think maybe was our best spooky episode. It just captured so much of what we were trying to do. We had those really incredible voices, and it was just, again, it felt like a really big place. When we finished that spooky month, it felt like we had this, like, October, we had those 4 really episodes that I was proud of every single one, but we had 4 of them, and then I think Outlast was a really great capstone. This is tough. What are your thoughts as well?
I think, again, for me, Whistleblower is so great because I personally was able to play a character in that game that just is I consider the polar opposite of me. Just saying things and doing things I would never do, but just the intensity of that story and how scary it is so easy to kind of put yourself in the main character's shoes. It was just a story that really is surprisingly gripping for this kind of like... It's pretty gnarly at times. It's and scary and disturbing. Outlast Whistleblower was just a fun, scary time, especially like you said, during the period of October, just like Undead Nightmare. And you're right, Ryan. And in terms of these games, if we released Whistleblower tomorrow, it would just be super weird and random. Like, why are you releasing a horror game in May? That's right, May 1st. Geez, in May, and how it would probably do fine, but it's not as impactful as during the time of Halloween, and how
Yeah.
great that was. That was a really special month for us for Tales. And I can't wait. Again, I cannot wait for next October. I cannot wait. It's gonna be so much fun. I just miss that. I miss that music. I miss the intro music. That was such good intro music. Baldur's Gate was, again, our third guest who just came in and knocked it out of the park. Like, really is one of our best edited, best voiced episodes. That was kind of like one of our better ones in terms of the quality. So, I don't know. What do you think, Ren? Do you have any other? Did you already say? You already said.
I did. But it's a tough one. I think because both of these are really important for really different reasons. And I don't know. Again, I don't know where to. I'm really proud of both of them. They were both really fun to make. They both had a really lasting impact on where we thought of and how we thought of things when we finished that Halloween month and we sent out Outlast. I think we were both really excited for what was coming next. Baldur's Gate, again, it was just such a huge step up for us as far as quality as the script and the voice acting and the editing. And that just the challenge of it was really great. And they're both really unique and interesting. So this one is one of our toughest matchups. It's going to get tougher, but this is one of our toughest matchups.
Yeah. I think I'm ready to vote, and then if we need to talk it through as good communicators and perspective sharers, I'm ready to do that, I think.
Okay, sure.
Okay. All right. Ready?
Here we go. Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
It was a game that pushed. I mean, and tell me what you think too, Ryan. If this did it for you as well, but it's a game. Covering Baldur's Gate pushed me to be better and want to be better for the podcast, which I think not only was a great episode and Jesse brought it and did a great job, but it motivated me to be better than we already were.
Yeah, and I think the story of Baldur's Gate is interesting. The characters of Baldur's Gate are interesting, but I don't think there was enough life there on its own. I think what Jesse brought to that is what made... Jesse is the only one who could have came and told us Baldur's Gate and had it be such an impactful episode, and I think that is why it stands out so much. Whereas Whistleblowers was an incredible episode, but I think we did, and you didn't really incredible job putting that script together and doing those voices, but I think Outlast Whistleblowers is a really great story. We told a really great job. Baldur's Gate, I don't think could have held up without the strong metal supports that Jesse put in there with his voice. It just had, like you said, it had a really big impact on how we thought about how we wanted this to be. It's this kind of, here's this really great episode, great script, great voices. Okay editing.
Great editing.
Great editing. That just kind of really shines, and kind of we're always working towards kind of having more of that in some meaningful way.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
Okay, are we ready?
We're ready for the next one.
We have Uncharted and The Last of Us.
Oof.
Both Naughty Dog experiences, both very different places in Naughty Dog's lives. They're kind of start to telling a narrative game, and then kind of when they hit, and again, I still haven't played Last of Us Part 2. I really need to, but they're kind of like they're one of their pinnacle points of what they're trying to create in The Last of Us. We had a guest for one of these. We didn't have a guest for the other. One was like really early. One was a little bit later, so there was a little bit more to it as far as other things going on there. This is a tough one. I think I'd be happy either way here with either of these. I think
something that stands out to me, if you don't mind me sharing, right?
Please do, because I'm in a tough spot here.
When we made The Last of Us, and we wrote the script and we recorded it, my partner listened to it, and she was so blown away by the story of it. Every time she'd go to work, she would listen to more of it and just be so pulled into the story. And the most ironic and funny part about this is that I tried to get her to play The Last of Us before Tales is ever a thing, and it was not that gripping to her. It was kind of like, okay, that's interesting. But just in this podcast, just listening to the story, and she's not a gamer, which is totally cool. No one's perfect, but having listened. She's gonna hear this too. Listening to the story really brought her into it, and she loved it. Like, she loves the story of The Last of Us, and she's very excited for part 2. She hasn't played, and she doesn't know anything about, but she's very excited to listen to that story when we eventually cover it. Uncharted again was our second guest on the show, My cousin Adam killed it. He did fantastic. It was a fun episode. And he did a great job as Sully, like fantastic job as Sully. But yeah, it's hard. These two are kind of in my mind for just very different reasons, neck and neck. I think I have a much more clear
after what you've just shared. I think I have a more clear, and I can talk about why after the fact, or if I need to defend it. But I think I feel good about a choice.
Okay, all right, I'm ready.
All right, ready?
All right,
3,
ready, 2, 1.
The Last of Us. Yeah. I think both of these are really great stories. Both of these are really great episodes. But I think if you sit down and listen to the Uncharted, you'd have a really great time and you would really enjoy it. Adam did an incredible job. But I think The Last of Us, because of how of an impactful story it is, and because of how hopefully the accessibility of being in that audio format without having to fight controls that you haven't spent your entire adult life mastering and learning is really impactful and really meaningful. And I think that alone allows it to shine brighter there.
I think that I totally agree with you. And I think that one of the unintentional beauties of Tales from the Cartridge is that it is a great podcast for stories that, like you just said, Ryan, for people who do not play video games, that would love to enjoy a video game but without having to play it, listening to that story and kind of being captivated by that story, told in a very different way than it was intended. And I think that's what Tales does really well. Knock on wood, I hope. And it's just great. Like the moment when my partner texted me and said, like, "Oh my God, so and so died!" Like like she was blown away that someone died, like someone that you became very close with in the game, and like just the horror of what happens to these people, and just the gravity of the situation and the ending. That was just so cool to share and experience with her in just a very different way than I was expecting. Very different way. I'm back, and it's be cool because like now she has this experience. The show will be coming out relatively soon, and I'm sure their take will be slightly different, and so it'd be kind of fun to compare and contrast because then they're like, oh, remember when this happened, and she'll have that experience as well, just in a very different way, which is I think is super duper cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Eric, we have our final four. The semifinals.
Oh my God!
This is tough. These are all really good scripts. These are all really great episodes. I think I'm more worried about this first matchup than the second, but they're both going to be hard.
Oh my God!
These two games, the first of these semifinals are The Secret of Monkey Island and Banjo-Kazooie, which these two games I think, like the reasons we've talked about, feel like they just so perfectly capture what we're trying to do here, is take a game that is inaccessible not just because it's a video game, but because of how old it is and how kind of, because of its age, it doesn't necessarily age well in playing them, especially if you're not somebody who plays games, and just taking out the most fun and interesting parts of it, shaking it up, and putting something that is really wonderful and fun and exciting. And I think both of these do that. Both of these are really wonderful in doing that. I do not know what to pick here. These are both tough. Banjo-Kazooie and Secret Monkey Island are both episodes I'm really proud of. Both episodes I think are really perfect for what we're trying to accomplish here at Tales. And I don't. Do you have any thoughts or feelings to help throw any sway here?
I think, man, this is so hard. I think, Ryan, you've done a fantastic job at making me appreciate how impactful Banjo-Kazooie was. I don't think I saw it the same way you did.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you shared that perspective because I don't think I realized how impactful Banjo-Kazooie was on us and the story that we told there, and how that take that we had on it was so different than we intended, I think, originally. But it turned out so much better than we realized. It was kind of like a really good stepping stone for us in our journey to where we are now at Tales. And then Secret Monkey Island, again, is a lot like that as well, in terms of showing our growth and showing the new ideas that we wanted to bring to the podcast in terms of the sound effects and the story and the voices. Like, it really showed how far we've come. Like, compared that to, again, BioShock, it's just like night and day. It's very, very different, I think one shows how far we've come, and one is almost like the soul of the idea of the show, like you were saying. So to me, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, this is tough. This is a tough one for that reason. I think I'd be happy with either of these.
Yeah. So we're at 3 minutes right now on our timer.
Okay.
We can try to vote, and then throw it out there. If we have to talk about it, we can. We can even vote the same one and still talk about it, and maybe flip flop.
Why don't we do this? We'll vote, and whatever we decide, we can say a eulogy talking about how great the other one is, because then we're gonna have an even tougher decision to make after that. But okay. I wish. One of the things I love about Monkey Island was the sound effects and the editing and all of the voices. We did that, and that was such a great piece. But the writing and the way we've changed took the creative freedom from Banjo-Kazooie is what makes that special. I wish there was a way, and we can, right? This is we have the power to do this. Put those two things together is I think what ideally what Tales is we take video games, older video games, newer video games, and we find a way to make them interesting and fun for the audio medium, and then add things to it to make it even more immersive. And both of these help us get there. I think I could choose, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's. I thought I was stuck on one.
I think so.
I was stuck on one.
I think I can choose.
And I don't know. Okay. Okay. Oh no. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's do it.
Okay. Ready?
3, 2, 1. Banjo-Kazooie. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think for the same reasons I keep talking about. I think if we showed somebody Monkey Island, they would be like, man, these sound effects are really cool. Man, everything that's going on is very cool. But I don't think it's as gripping and as interesting as what we did with Banjo-Kazooie. And I think it's why it is one of our most downloaded episodes, even though I think it both caught us off guard, is because it is just so perfectly captures what we're trying to do in taking these stories like Banjo-Kazooie that does not make any sense if you're not a gamer experiencing it. There's some really great stuff there, but just getting to relive it and getting to add our little twist on it and is what just makes it so special, I think.
Yeah, I 1000% agree with you. Everything you just said is exactly how I was feeling about this. And I think Monkey Island was cool. It shows our growth, which is a very important thing to be mindful of and appreciate. But I think Banjo-Kazooie was literally a moment in Tales where we had an epiphany in the middle of recording an episode, something we did not intend to talk about. And it just showed how we did our storytelling, how we talked about our perspectives, how we drew from the story about the parallels we were seeing in between that and our everyday life, and it was just kind of had a little bit of everything. So it's I think that wins it for me too. Ugh.
Okay. All right. We got our next matchup. Are we ready? Geez. We have Baldur's Gate.
Oh God.
And we have The Last of Us.
I can't do this.
This is really tough. I think for me, this is really tough. I think if I have to, I think I'm proud of all these. They were really fun to make, all of them. As far as impact, they both have a really different impact. Like we've talked about, Baldur's Gate really allowed us to kind of have something to strive for and work towards and to be better because of how incredible Jesse did. The Last of Us so perfectly encapsulates why games as stories are important, why they are meaningful, why they can have such a emotional impact in such a way that this game is pretty perfect for what we're trying to do here. It allows us to really kind of break down a story in such a meaningful way that is different from Banjo-Kazooie, but equally as beautiful and equally as wonderful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think Baldur's Gate was so detailed and so good, and the performances were great, and the editing was fantastic. Like, it has so much going for it. And I think The Last of Us is great because not only is the story great, and it was one of our very first episodes that we took on, but that also it showed that there is another way for people to enjoy video games without having to play video games, which I think is super cool. Like, it's just so interesting how, like, you know, it's funny because, like, I was thinking about it in terms of, like, you know, when I'm sure there's many people who are not thrilled with the idea of the Last of Us TV show. You know, they weren't thrilled with the Last of Us movie. Now there's a Last of Us TV show. I'm sure there's many people who are not thrilled with the idea of that. But I think when you compare that to a podcast like Tales that just tells the story and talks about it, that's so much more acceptable and respectable towards the story than, like, the Last of Us TV show compared to the game. You know, two very different things. But I think that the point is that, like, I'm trying to make is that our episodes work for people who don't want to play games but want to enjoy the story. You know, with people who may also like the story as well. So I think that's what the beauty in The Last of Us kind of shows us in our journey with Tales. So both are, again, very important. I think
I've made it this far. Both great. I think I have a clear one.
Yeah, me too.
But
me too.
All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
3,
2, 1. The Last of Us.
Yeah. Baldur's Gate was an incredible story. Jesse did an amazing job with every single facet of it. I think, again, if we go back to, and again, maybe this isn't a great judge, but if we go back to, if we were to show somebody Baldur's Gate and show somebody The Last of Us, I think The Last of Us is more accessible because the Baldur's Gate, the story wasn't what propped it up and made it special. It was Jesse's voice acting and writing. That is what kind of got it to where it was, whereas The Last of Us is just so perfectly, again, for completely different reasons than Banjo-Kazooie, which is wild, kind of captures what we were trying to do, right? Take video games and make them more accessible, and then have a conversation about them in the same way you'd have a conversation about a really important book, or a really important movie, or a really important piece of our culture. And I think The Last of Us allows us to do that because it is so well done. That's why I ultimately made that decision, is because I love Baldur's Gate. I don't feel it's as accessible as The Last of Us. I don't think it is as far as, like, if the purpose of this podcast is to tell video game stories in a new, interesting way. Baldur's Gate does that, in that Jesse took his D&D character and had him, retell the story of Baldur's Gate. Me as his DM who DM'd that character, that's really impactful and special to me. I don't know if it's as special and impactful to all of our storygoers. That being said, I cannot wait for Siege of Dragon Spear. Just I think that's, for me, why I made that decision.
I agree. I think, like you just said, not to be a dead horse, but just Jesse did fantastic. But The Last of Us really shows the power of these episodes, of this podcast, and what it can do for people who may not enjoy video games per se. So very cool. Wow, we are down to the
all right,
final.
Here we are.
Did not expect this matchup at all.
Did you?
No.
Were you ready to make an argument between Banjo-Kazooie and The Last of Us today when we started this? What a wild place to be at. I mean, looking back at this bracket, it's been, like, this has been not just really fun to do, but also, like, what a great way to reflect on all of the episodes we've made so far and think of them in different, interesting ways. This has been just really both fun just to do, but also like really impactful to think about these things and what has worked for us and what we've really enjoyed and what has been successful. This is a really tough matchup because, again, for two different reasons, both of these episodes, both the Banjo-Kazooie and The Last of Us, are kind of what we set out to do, what we were set out to make with this podcast. Both make video game stories accessible and both allow them to kind of have a conversation and be a part of that conversation with us, to kind of share their perspectives and talk through us and be on this journey with us as we explore these games. I don't know. This is really tough. I think for Banjo-Kazooie, like I said, it's a cartridge game that if you wanted to play it now, it'd have a really hard time doing so. So now we have this perfect way for you to experience kind of the core of what that is. That if there was a Banjo-Kazooie 3, Banjo-Kazooie 2 that came out, you could use this episode to help get you where you needed to be and have a really fun time and like talk about our culture and how this game reflected our culture at the time. Yeah. And then you have The Last of Us, which is a game that really asks you to think about your perspective and where you are in this world and what your perspective is and how that has such a weird and wild impact on we as humans and how we interact with each other in just a really interesting way that it's tough. Eric, what are your thoughts here?
Oh my god, yeah. I did not think this was gonna be our matchup. This is like it's just blowing my mind. Like the fight between Banjo-Kazooie and The Last of Us. Like for some people it's probably very obvious, for other people's like us it's probably very hard. It's very hard. Two very different games telling two very different stories. And it's just like we said before already, like Banjo-Kazooie was just a story in which I honestly, looking back at Banjo-Kazooie, I didn't know if it was gonna be good. I cut so much of it out. I was so nervous about recording the episode and it being boring. And then it turns out that we had this kind of, again, this epiphany about like our societal culture in the 90s and what that looked like and what it meant to be beautiful. And the driving force of that narrative for the villain of the story and how and why they're choosing to do these bad things. And just the culture around what who this bad guy was, and those closest to them, Grundy and like her sister just bad-mouthing her at any point that she can, rather than trying to come to understand her. And so many crazy like conversations that I just was not prepared to have, but I'm so glad we did. It was so cool to have that conversation. And then with The Last of Us, like we had those. I think what The Last of Us is so cool is that when redid those scenes with Joel and Ellie and those impactful moments, those crazy, like the arguing and the yelling, and then the seeing Joel's growth as a person who won no real human interaction to a person who cared deeply about somebody. It's just so cool to experience in that way. And I remember talking about and then again, this is a great thing that happened in the middle of the episode that I did not foresee happening. That I kind of had that moment where I realized that Joel, throughout the whole game of The Last of Us, is picking up these comic books for Ellie, right? It's a collectible in the game, and he's always giving them to Ellie. And there's a part in that where he goes, I don't read these things. I get them for Ellie, right? And he gives them to Ellie because he knows he enjoys them. And we had a conversation about how impactful it is for a parent, even if they don't like the things that their kids like, to be present and to be like encouraging towards the things that they like, and be like, wow, that's really cool. Even if you don't like it, that's a good thing for someone to do, because then you see, I wish I remember their names, Sam and his brother in the game. I forget the brother's name. Henry? Sam and Henry, I think.
Henry.
Yeah.
And
how Henry was the older one, I believe. Henry, one of them, the oldest brother, refused to let the younger brother have a toy. Only the important things, he said. Like, you do not get to take toys with you. And you kind of see what happens on their journey compared to Joel and Ellie, where Joel is kind of like encouraging what Ellie likes and being a kind of fatherly role towards him, and kind of that deep bond they share, and just having that crazy parallel between like, this is effective parenting right now. And I don't think Joel even meant to do it. I don't know if Naughty Dog meant to have that be a thing where he's collecting comic books and showing how to be a proper parent towards Ellie. I don't know if they meant to do that, but it's just so cool we kind of caught that and talking about how crazy that is, like how being an effective parent looks like this, and then comparing it into a pandemic world, and it is just, again, super cool moment for Tales. I think I went on a ramble there, but it's so cool. Yeah. And actually, I will say this too. I know we have a minute left. Apparently, I will say this too. Lots of Us was our first two-parter episode, and we haven't done a whole lot of two-parter episodes since, because they never do as well as I think as we anticipate them doing. So we try to keep them to one episode. But I remember being so excited to cover The Last of Us twice. It was just such a cool experience. It was
have that discussion.
Yeah. But then, Banjo-Kazooie, it's funny how Banjo-Kazooie was this game that I did not foresee being that great to cover, and it turned to be fantastic and a lot of fun. My timer says 37 seconds, but I don't know if I can do this.
It's really tough, and I think both of these are so meaningful and impactful for different reasons. We have, with The Last of Us, your partner kind of experiencing video games through these and having this really meaningful connection to the story. And you have Banjo-Kazooie, which we have a couple friends who have mentioned that is, they haven't listened to all our episodes, which is okay. We don't force our friends to listen to our podcast, but they have mentioned Banjo-Kazooie as like, oh, I really love that game. I was so excited to hear that episode because I miss Banjo-Kazooie. They were to relive that experience through that. And those are two just totally different reasons to listen, both one to just engage with a story that is so good but felt inaccessible to you because of the medium, and then to relive this experience that you love so much. And I think both of those are great and both of those are important. I think one of those is I think more, I don't want to like say one is better than the other, but I think one of those is maybe more meaningful, or one of those is more impactful in allowing to have more perspectives on conversations, I think.
All right, I agree. I think I'm ready.
Okay.
I think I'm ready.
Okay, I think I'm ready too. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. 3,
2, 1. The Last of Us. Okay. Yeah. Did not expect us to pick that game at all. I did not see The Last of Us being the game that we would pick overall. But the more we talked about it, and the more of an impact I saw from not only your perspective but it helped me kind of see my own perspective better. Just the impact of The Last of Us and the impact it has in terms of storytelling for people who may not enjoy video games, as well as the crazy things we pulled out from analyzing the story and seeing that growth and being able to portray that story between Joel and Ellie. So it was just such a great time. I would love to revisit that story one day and redo The Last of Us again. It would be so good.
Yeah, I would too. And I think both of these were really great choices, and I think both of these are really great episodes. I think Banjo-Kazooie was doing something that we were making Tales to do, and so is The Last of Us. Both of those are kind of examples of what we're trying to create with this podcast, both totally different experiences in totally different ways. But I think I would rather, and kind of you sharing that you reminding me of what happened, I would rather people who don't play video games to tune in and get something from this and want to engage in this medium and care about this medium, or at least the stories and characters in the way that we do, is more impactful than kind of having people go back to this adventure that they really loved. And I think the creative freedom that you're able to take is what made Banjo-Kazooie as special as it was, and able to make it be meaningful. But I think if our goal is to have more thoughts and feelings and perspectives, I think Banjo-Kazooie lends some to that, but I think The Last of Us really is a story and really an episode that allows us to kind of really have those perspectives and have those conversations in a really meaningful way.
I can't say any better than that. That's fantastic. That's a great way to wrap it. I mean, it's great. Yeah, 100% agree with you. Cheap way to say it, but I don't want to beat a dead horse.
Okay, we did it. We did it. We spent a whole bunch of time. Hopefully this was fun for folks to listen to. It was really fun to do. And
oh, yeah.
It was really interesting to look back at all our episodes and kind of talk about them and relive them in a little bit of a way. How was that for you, Eric? Did you enjoy that?
It was way more stressful than I was anticipating, and it was great to kind of give a little bit of the behind the scenes in some episodes for the storygoers to kind of see and understand how we're feeling when we're making those things, as well as kind of where we value in our stories, and we hope that they value too. I think it's super cool, and I really hope we do hear from people about their favorite stories that we've covered so far. I would love to get those perspectives. So, but yeah, so The Last of Us is our, as of May 1st, 2021, our top game that we've covered. Not to say that the others are fantastic stories.
They're all good.
You should listen to every single one. Maybe twice, maybe 3 times each. They're so good.
Share them with your friends.
Rate us on Apple Podcasts. I don't know. Or maybe just share your perspectives. We'd always love that. Speaking of which, segue. You can send us your thoughts, feelings, and perspectives to talesfromthecartridge@gmail.com. All of the E's are 3's. Also, comment, DM us on Twitter and Instagram. Let us know what your favorite game that we've covered here on Tales is so far. And maybe throw us a suggestion of what game you would like us to cover. We'll see. We have some good ideas coming to you soon. I was saying that coming down the pipeline, but I don't know if that actually is the saying. So I was kind of rambling there. But some really good ideas coming up. We have planned our month out, so we will kind of share that as we go along, because now I'm thinking, I'm almost having an idea of what to change this month. I was kind of thinking during this episode, so we'll see. But as always, we hope you're doing well. We hope everyone's safe and healthy, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye. Bye.